Hi everyone, this is Navika Chada, a cloud engineer and a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional in Developers Technology. I warmly welcome each one of you to the seventh episode of Tech Chat with Navika, wherein today we would be talking about app modernization with Azure. And to throw some light on it, we have an expert with us today, Mr. Thomas Tomow. Thomas is a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional in the Azure category for consecutive 6 years. Currently, he is working as a COO and CTO at Experit Germany, having more than 20 years of extensive experience in the IT industry. His technical expertise lies in Azure, IoT, Azure Kubernetes, Dockers, containers, Azure SDKs, CLIs, and the list goes on and on. Thank you so much, Thomas, for taking out your precious time and joining me in for today's episode.
Yeah, thank you for welcoming me and having this nice introduction. It sounds like a big list of things that I can. And yeah, if I'm thinking about that, I think it could be true, right? It is. With, let's say, 20 years of experience in IT, I did a lot of stuff. I had my fingers nearly in every field and every sector and every industry. So I can for sure say that. I had most of the Microsoft portfolio in my hands already, and yeah, grabbed a lot of knowledge and experience with that. So thanks for this introduction, like having a reflection of myself.
Yeah, indeed. It's my pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much. Um, then, without any further ado, let's get started because this is a session that I am really looking forward to because I'm so sure that I'm gonna learn a lot from you in this session. So I'm super excited for it. So I'm not gonna wait anymore and just get started with it. So Thomas, of lately we're seeing a lot of companies and businesses are actually moving their applications to Azure, right? Mainly because of the reason so that of better performance, and so that they're able to sort of deliver good services to their end customers, and also because they can actually stay in pace with the latest technologies and updates that are happening, right? And even in general, when we talk about cloud in general, I mean, there are a lot of benefits of moving into cloud, right? Like, as you say, it's like cost effective what they say, right? It follows a consumption based model. So definitely you have to you pay less, right, in cloud as compared to the on premises. And similarly, security features, reliability, availability, and the list just goes on. So as we talk about moving our on premises applications to the cloud, um, that's where app modernization comes into the picture, right? So can you just throw some light on it as to what it is all about so that the audience actually gets hold of it initially?
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for that question. That is quite interesting to answer that because app modernization is something that I tried often to define for at least for myself to just have an alignment about what we are speaking. So I see app modernization first as part of bringing processes, people, and such kind of things that are dependent to each other in companies, especially more to let's say an optimized version of itself, and also to a state of the art technology at least. So better would be to go a little bit more cutting or bleeding edge with all the technologies that come from super duper manufacturers like Microsoft, for example. But that's something that is I have as a, let's say, definition or a foundation for what is app modernization, at least in a granular view. Besides this, I also think when it comes to app modernization, it's also a driver for digitalization. So often we hear this digitalization and it's just a buzzword and no one wants to hear it anymore. But it is a thing, at least in Germany. So if you think of having some touch points with governmental institutes, then you know what digitalization means and what is needed. So therefore, app modernization is part of making things better and being competitive also on the market. So at least with this, I think it's not necessary to have app modernization together with cloud, but it's let's say a natural step if we think of modernizing things and making them available and scalable all over the world. If we are thinking globally, then we need at least some kind of computer centers or something like this that are able to scale. And most often it's just the next step to go to the real cloud like Azure or AWS or whatever. I myself, I'm specialized in Azure, so it means that I just have a flavor if I'm talking about cloud. So for me, app modernization and Azure goes somehow together, but it's like being in Twilight. So it's often app modernization together with Azure, but with conditions. Means not every company is ready for Azure, for example. So you have often or thinking the way around when it has to come to app modernization. So maybe we should put this first. If we want to start, or if we have the need to start with app modernization, some condition has to be in place. And I have several perspective on what condition has to be in place to make app modernization ready, or app modernization as a project. First, it could be like cost efficiency. So if you think about cost efficiency, that is a reason for app modernization. So it could be that you have a legacy app that has grown over, let's say, 20 years, or is error prone, whatever, because of not that state of the art technology. Then often it leads to, let's say, more cost. Like you have to buy more PCs, let's say a PC. You have to buy more RAM, more storage, whatever. All the time you have to scale. Sometimes you have physical boundaries where you cannot just overstep it, and you are fixed to what you have, and you cannot go further. So you cannot scale, for example. Or maybe the infrastructure that you have in your own premises is just not reliable because of outdated physical equipment, like memory or hard disk or whatever. So cost efficiency is some of the perspective that drives application modernization. Another example could be also the competitive factor on the market. So maybe in a company is not, let's say, that driver in the market because of old technology that are relying on. See why app modernization should also be a project, or should someone keep in mind to do someone in the future. So it's quite important to see one of the arguments and then react on it, and also know what to do then afterwards. But that's kind of an implementation thing that maybe we can dive a little bit deeper, but that would be then a long story.
Definitely. App modernization really helps in long run, right? Because it really helps in latest updates and with the latest features. And I really second your point on that. Just moving forward, Thomas, like for example, if a company um, is in the planning stage, right? And they're wanting to move their on-premises application, and like basically they're planning to implement app modernization with Azure specifically. Um, are there any prerequisites or key points which they have to keep in mind, or maybe any strategies that they should apply? Like for example, we can say they might need to refactor their on-premises application a little bit, maybe code-wise or something, so that the transition to cloud is pretty much smoother. You know,
Understand.
maybe something of that sort, or maybe repackaging or something. So, are there any strategies which you would like to share, which a company should at least look into, which could be helpful to them while implementing app modernization?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that there are best practice or that guideline that you have to follow to make it then a successful journey. But always the beginning stands know what you have. So it's kind of analysis about the current facts, so that you can grab everything, that you get the picture, the big picture of what your app is in which state. And then you should also be clear about the fact why you want to do something. Yeah, why should it be an application modernization? Often it is the fact that companies don't really know that they do have to do an app modernization journey. And I just used the word journey because of the fact it is not just done in a couple of weeks, so that it would just be an easy app. Most cases are just complex solutions that are, let's say, parts of different applications themselves, but in the whole thing, they are a complete solution that has to be that have to be modernized. And so, in fact, the first thing that I do often from my experiences is I just stick my head into the, let's say, the big ball of mud that often is. And then you have to grab all the information, like what is the healthiness of the application? Is it always, let's say, is it that error prone that you cannot use it? Are data losses there? Can you compete in the market already? Can you adjust it? What is the code base at all? Is it do you have a lot of unit tests around it? Often it's a .NET application. In which version is that .NET used? Is it .NET Framework? Is it already .NET Core, something like this? Do you use standard? All those questions has to be answered, and then you can find out also the application itself. Is it tightly coupled to things? Are there too much dependencies? What is the quality state at all? Are there pipelines? So a lot of technical challenges where you have to just throw an eye on and keep the facts then in mind and make a plan on how to arrange things. A second really underrated thing that I often just give as let's say knowledge exchange is that you have to talk to the stakeholders. You have to find the stakeholders, all the people that are let's say somehow part of the application or using that application. So then you have a whole picture about the soft things and the hard things, like what is the code and what are the people, what the people are thinking of. And the third thing is analyze the processes. And so if you have everything in place, like what is the often an application is used to reflect the process in the company. So if you know the process that is under the support of the application, why the application is there, and you know the people and you know the software, then you can make a plan. So also you need a reason for why you should modernize the thing. Maybe there's a company that has a 20-year-old application that runs perfectly and smoothly in an environment and reflects the process perfectly. So then there is really no need to modernize that thing. But in case you have a struggle with the market at least, or with your own user in your company because they are really unsatisfied and produce a lot of errors, for example, in the accounting department. So if they do use the old software and then just put in wrong financial numbers and they get out a lot of mistake numbers, and they are maybe they're reporting wrong numbers, then they can really crash on the market. So that's not good. In that case, you have to find let's say arguments why application modernization should be in place. And then you have to decide what is the plan, what you want to achieve and how you want to achieve that. And then go implementation. And that's really the hard part. But honestly, I would say that the most hardest, but also the most important part is just to start. If you're starting completely wrong, then you decide everything in the end completely wrong. So it means shit in, shit out.
Right. I was just about to say that this is the planning is the most crucial part, right? As you just mentioned, the three different factors that one has to consider. And I really like the factor that you said, like taking the feedback from the end users, right? What they want in the application should be better. And that can, we can actually utilize that and then implement that as well.
Yeah. That is really important point that you just emphasized. From my experience, what I often have in let's say the starting phase is interviews. I am having interviews with the user base often, also together with the developer that are creating this weird thing that we call application. And I'm also talking to the let's say the management that just is responsible for all facets of why this application is there, how to use, how to deploy, and such kind of things. And I'm getting then the picture often about that the process is not the process that the software should reflect. So with this information, I often gain insights about how to maybe develop that application in the app modernization journey into a specific direction that suits all needs. So often it is so that you have, if you are in the enterprise context and you have a big application or let's call it solution that you just investigate, then you often find that the process, the official process in the company is not the process that the software reflects, or maybe other way around, that the software is tied to a specific process, but no one is caring for the process and is misusing the application. What also often results in errors or in problems or whatever, things that are not good in that state. So it means that if you have an analysis about how a software is really run in a company and with which results and how it is used, then you can make a real plan on in which direction you have to create this app modernization plannings. So because maybe you have to change the complete process because the application is just not reflecting the modern times. It's not just reworking an application, it's just reworking a complete process in the company. And this is the hardest and the toughest part here. It's really a hard part.
Now that we have spoken about what app modernization is in general, right, and with Azure as well, and we've also discussed about the strategies that you just spoke about, these three different factors, I would like to come on to the last question, which is very important, that what are the different Azure options basically which can help us implement app modernization? I mean, Azure App Services, as you mentioned, containers, and you can just add something more to the list, and if you can just give some brief of different options as to how we can perform app modernization.
Yeah, good question. I gave a little statement to in the first answer, but what I often use from Azure, if that is already implemented in the company, so this is kind of prerequisite. But if I have Azure and I want to go the app modernization journey, then I often start with something like App Insights, some logging mechanism that I use in the cloud, because that will be a foundational base on every application. I think when you have something in the cloud running, so you need something where you can see, where you can feel, where you can see what is the health state of your application. So that's the reason what I'm often or why I'm often use application insights or log analytic workspace or something like this, that I attach immediately to the legacy app that I want to transfer to the cloud. So it's just starting before any modernization. So with that, I have the first connect into Azure. I'm transporting all the information to Azure, and I have deeply insights in what's going on with the application when I start my modernization path. Why I'm doing this? So when it, for example, comes to cutting into pieces, then I can, let's say, migrate somehow that piece of my choice into Azure, as, for example, as a service, what often is. And I have immediately information about was that migration of that little piece successful or not, because I attached my logins to that. So I can compare, is my legacy app running in that way? At least the microservice that I cut from that legacy application into cloud should also run somehow. So I always try to find the flow of the information that transposed in the information what the process should be, can give insights about a successful migration or not. So I can often see early enough gaps in the migration, or maybe I missed some dependencies, or while cutting off, I found often that I missed cutting another piece that is really important for keeping the process. Not important for the application, but maybe for the process. But attached to the loggings, I can see that everything is running smoothly. So that's the first part that I often use with Azure together. That makes it really, really easy to use, because it's just a really integrated service that you can use nearly with any language, with any application. So the first step that I'm doing with. Afterwards, I just used all the container-based services that are available, like Azure Container Apps, one of the newest services, and app services. I can easily put now my cutted services into and leave them running in the cloud. That makes it really easy to understand how to cut further and make them progress. So it's stepwise, incrementally.
All right. Understood. I'm one question very curious to know. What are the different scenarios, or maybe how should I frame it in a way that this is very impromptu. As I just told this answer that one can go ahead with Azure containers or app services, in order to implement app modernization. Are there any specific scenarios wherein one should go in for app service and not containers, or vice versa? Or is there any difference in a way, like you say, with this type of application should be, put to app service, Azure App Service, not containers, or anything of that sort?
Yeah, I understand the question, and that's a question that I had, let's say, as a base discussion in a team in one of the projects. Nope, that's a really good question that I'm often asking myself. Why not go directly to app service instead of creating a container, such kind of thing? There are some reasons when you should consider going directly to app service, writing code for app service directly without
Hmm.
using container. Is,
Yeah.
for example, if you have an environment of developers, so working in mixed teams. I said just
Hmm.
mixed teams means that as an external consultant together with the
Hmm.
company tries to make app modernization together with that team as a mixed team, means
Hmm.
if the developer of the company itself that are working in a mixed team are often not that skilled or just
Hmm.
knowledgeable about the new stuff, so that they
Hmm.
have to learn from me or from my team, and
Hmm.
so often it's easier to stay in the code instead of introducing container technologies and then showing them what they can do with that.
Hmm.
So the understanding of what container means is not really hard. So you can be really fast into containers, but you introduce then new technologies, too much, maybe too much technologies that others have to,
Hmm.
let's say, fight with instead of just work with them. It could often be a good, let's say, first step to go into the cloud with something that you are used to and that you are familiar with. Means
Hmm.
writing the code directly for an app service and deploy that could be a good approach. But at the end, when I had discussion with the team, we found just stay in the app service world, write your code for that, because it's just a long running process and you can stay for a long time with that. And in parallel, try to get engaged with containers and then replace them with containers, because it's just a minimal step.
Right.
So
So it's like
it's just compatibility.
yeah, it's like more of a safe decision to go ahead with Azure App Service, at least initially, we can say, right? As is being a
Yeah.
platform as a service, we don't have to do much of the underlying things. And I think the same works with virtual machines as well, right? It's better to run applications on Azure App Services compared to virtual machines, because there you have to still take care of some underlying things, it being infrastructure as a service, right? So still, I guess
Yeah.
the same theory can apply over there as well.
Yeah, somehow. So honestly, I really wouldn't recommend working with virtual machines when it comes to application modernization,
Running
and
like that.
really
Yeah.
wouldn't think about this with just one thought, because it doesn't really make sense. You just introduce a machine into a company that they have already on premise, but they can work in Azure, and there's no benefit for, and you can
Right.
just, yeah, that is not modernization. So if you want to
Correct.
put something on modern stable feeds, then just put it into the cloud as the cloud native start, and keep it there. So because app modernization also means that you keep your application iteratively always ongoing in let's say state of the art technologies, so that you have just to make little adjustments to your software with little updates continuously, instead
Mm-hmm.
of just working with an Azure virtual machine set and then try to upgrade or migrate that then to cloud native
Yeah,
services. That does not really make
right,
sense. So you can just yeah, get rid of those little steps and make them complete by using services.
right. When you were just talking about containers and app services, that's when virtual machines struck my mind. I was like, I think the same theory applies here as well. Safe option, at least for the people who are just migrating to Azure and just getting into app modernization, app service, Azure App Service can be a safe decision for them.
Yeah, but, honestly, I have also currently starting a project where we just have to make the decision if we should go to lift and shift approach before doing a renewal or rewrite of the application. Because
Okay.
sometimes you have to think about the situation of the company. So if you are
Hmm.
in an application or in a world that keeps an application running really
Mm-hmm.
business critically near to the market,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
you, for example, have the or fighting against the issue that someone wants to switch off your compute center, then you have to do something immediately, and that could be in the first step then lifting it completely to Azure. as it is, make it running in Azure, and then from there on, you can just try to keep in parallel that modernization part with our native services. So then lift and shift completely makes sense, because just of time and running out of business, maybe, or the potential of running out of business. So then you can use lift and shift approaches, like putting something in a virtual machine in Azure, so that could be one of the first steps when it comes to mission critical approaches. Lift and shift is a good approach, because you move something to the cloud and leave it there running as an extended cloud compute center. But on the parallel, you should keep then moving things from the virtual machines into native services, because there you can just get rid of the manual maintenance that you always have. Virtual machines need care, and that could also be cost intensive. And therefore, it is one of the goals of myself to put something then into native service, because of the manageability as a serverless approach, such kind of things, so that you have a little bit more freedom in how to do things, at least for companies that are not, let's say, able to spend too much resource like human beings into working at their IT infrastructure. So then it comes easily to the fact that you have to use managed and serverless services. Makes things smarter.
But that's smart approach, and that just depends on that particular scenario, right? Only if it's running out of this.
This just a rare situation where from what I experienced so far, that does not mean that it's an overall thing, but from my experience, it is just a rare situation where you put an application directly to virtual machines as a lift and shift approach. I rather would suggest to go more to a complete switch over to services in Azure, where you have the complete architecture built on top of best practices and state-of-the-art technologies. And also you get your updates from the services. So that's one of the benefits that come completely free. So you don't have to care for the virtual machine. You can easily switch your services, and then Microsoft cares then for the updates or for whatever. So you don't have to care for. But it is kind of, let's say, artisan to bring all the services together. Most in a time where you are modernize the application, you have two parts: the legacy part and the new part, and they have to communicate with each other. That makes things a little bit harder. So, but better with native services in Azure, instead of using a virtual machine where you have to establish networking, firewalls, that kind of stuff.
The underlying stuff, correct? That's true. That is true. One last question before wrapping up. Is there any cost factor included? Just out of curiosity, as compared, like when you think about app modernization with containers or app services, we've understood that app services is a pretty much simpler way as compared to containers initially. But is there any cost factor also? I mean, something is more costly.
Of course. The cost factor is always something, right? So it's most important part for most companies, right? And often it starts with arguing why it is first in the first time more cost intensive, then you can save something, because the whole modernization process is really expensive, I would say, for most of the companies, because you have often to rewrite things. You have to come up with a lot of people that are caring for the software, and people want to be paid, right? But at the end, if you calculating it a little bit on a long running time perspective, then you see that cost efficiency is given with running managed and serverless services. Because first of all those updates, the careness that Microsoft brings, instead that you have to care for. The second thing is often if you would transfer the migration to something on premises, so you would make a legacy app modern but state of the art on premise technology, then you keep on try to keep on the scalability, for example, or the reliability part. So that is often a factor that comes with the native services in a cloud just free. because you don't have to care. You just switch it on and it scales completely automatically. You don't have to care for. And on premises, it's often the case that you have to bring the metal bear. So you can just go into the store, just buy new PCs, put it beside the other, and just run it. And you can say, okay, it's scaled, but you have to do it the next time again and again and again.
Correct.
And it just
Yeah.
peaks down. You have enough metal there, but you cannot use it because you don't have any needs for. So that is already paid on, and that way you're losing money. And in the cloud, it's pretty much the same argument, vice versa. So if you are doing stuff, then you have to pay, indeed. But if you are not doing anything, often it cools down and just scales down, and then it costs you nearly nothing. It depends to how you are doing that. But yeah, of course, it could be also a trap. So means everyone is coming with that argument. It could be cost less cost than you have on your premises because you are using cloud, but that is not sufficient argument. Sometimes it's dependent to what you are doing. Let's say you have an application that stores data. So normally you would use an SQL server and on premises. How you want to do that and in cloud? Often you are with an approach to make microservice world and use Cosmos DB. Cosmos DB is a big thing. So it means if you're a company just want to store data simply and just request, respond, whatever, with data, then that's quite easy to use something really simple. But most of the let's say consultants or developers just want to use Cosmos DB, and that makes it then expensive for the case that you're not really using it, because Cosmos DB is just more than just a database. So you can make also a lot of faults in using services in Azure. Yeah, so you have to decide carefully what service to use and to which need they are. So it means that if we're just talking about simple data, don't use Cosmos DB. So as an architect, you have carefully decide what to use, not to trap the cost efficiency argument. So that is one of the, let's say, pitfalls that often are trapped in. So just to think about which service to use for the modernization and set the right one on the right place.
That's true. And I think once people start using your application on cloud, that's when you actually get to know, right? For example, if you're going for a plan of P1, V3, hypothetically, right, for Azure App Service, you really don't know if there's too much of traffic, or maybe the API calls are, they're taking time, then you have to definitely, upscale it, right? You have to scale it up. And then as you scale it up, you scale up the price as well along with it. So that actually, it's like real, you have to see the real life scenario, and not only it has many advantages, cloud, but cost efficiency is a big advantage, because when you're working on-prem, it's like you have to give in capital expenditures a lot, that one time big amount you have to pay for it, right? Maintaining the hardware, etc. On the other hand, here in cloud, OpEx aside, right? Operational costs that you have to pay on some regular basis after some timely period.
So it's shifting.
I always, whenever I do my events, I always have this graph in one of my deck, which explains the capex and opex and how does it differentiate in both the scenarios. So that's definitely there. And so we have reached to the end of the session. Thank you so much, Thomas. I have learned a lot from you, definitely. It was such an insightful session, and it went so naturally. I literally asked my doubts to you, whatever came in my mind. And thank you so much once again. And you want to say any signing off note?
I was really happy to stay with you here in the podcast. So Navika, thank you for having me welcome here and having me introduced and letting my story live here. And thanks for that.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure having you. Thank you so much, Tom.